Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Max Revenue channel. Today in our special series, Diary of a New Producer, week 10, where we follow Ian Cognito. We're going to talk about 4 different things: cell phones, riding solo, solidifying relationships, and again, yes, the follow-up later list. For those who don't know or are new to the channel, Diary of a New Producer is really just a series where we give you a behind the scenes look into Ian Cognito and his progress, right? From starting as a new producer, zero book, nothing handed to him, and building his way to $1 million plus book of business. My name is Micah. I'm his mentor. I'm also the host here on the Max Revenue Show. So let's get into this, folks. Week number 10. Before I get into the 4 bullet points, just had a good talk with Ian today. He's pumped, right? He's got a really good week coming up. He's got 4 meetings this week. So he kind of has this feeling of excitement, like, man, a lot of stuff's starting to compile, right? Here we are, week 10, calls he made, 6-7 weeks ago are starting to add up. Meetings are starting to add up, and he's excited. And all I told him when he said that, I said, man, hold on to this excitement, right? Let that be your fuel, let that be your hunger, but also let it help you weather the storm of producing, because you're going to have stretches where you're like, you just look around, you're like, man, I haven't sold anything in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And if you, that can really get discouraging. So I was like, just keep that excitement, right? Because droughts will kind of come, right? So anyways, all right. First thing I said I would talk about today is cell phones. So Ian's got 5 meetings set up, and I asked him, I said, man, how many of those were set when you caught a person on their cell phone? 80%, 4 out of the 5, right? Doesn't mean that you can't set meetings other ways. And a lot of times with cell phones, it's just tough to get them. But he was able to get the cell phones, called them, set the script that we talked about in other episodes. If you missed that, go check them out. Real simple script, and he's getting meetings. It's working. Okay, so I always get asked, how can I get cell phone numbers? There's a couple different ways, right? You could subscribe to a service, ZoomInfo, Lucia, Seamless AI, but getting cell phones is getting more and more difficult because as they're out there in public, people are like putting their number on a do not call list. So couple other different ways to try to get cell phones are, one, do a drop-in, get their business card, right? And a lot of times on a business card, an owner will have their cell phone. Okay, that's one way. That's worked for me sometimes. That's a slower way. Another way is you could also pay for a company that can kind of scrub your data and just tell them like, hey, I want to give you a list of 200. Can you get me direct dial numbers? Okay, that's a little bit more expensive, but a lot of times you can still get this data for 35 cents, 40 cents per record. And it can make a ton of sense for you, right? It can really speed up things. The last thing I'll say about cell phones is just don't be afraid to call people on their cell phone. That's the biggest, I think, barrier to, besides just being able to get their cell phones. But the second biggest barrier is like, I'm afraid to call their cell phone. It's just, I don't know. Yes, we're in 2023, okay? And just cell phones are a way of life, right? Don't feel weird. Don't make it awkward when you call someone their personal cell phone. I do get called out occasionally, but I can count on probably 2 hands the amount of times I get called out from people for calling their cell phones throughout a year, right? So it doesn't happen very often. All right. So next thing, let's talk about riding solo, right? What do I mean by riding solo? So talking again with Ian, he has all these meetings coming up. He's had a couple meetings already. And I was like, man, how are you feeling on these meetings? Great. I feel super confident. Why? He's using the first meeting call script, right? The first meeting framework. And the reason, these aren't my words, these are his words, that he likes it so much, it takes all the guesswork out of things. He can truly listen. He doesn't have to think about what he's going to ask next, right? That's huge, guys. Listening, this is so basic, everyone says it, right? But, listening is everything, right? You don't want to go to these first meetings talking a ton. You want to ask really good questions that make them think, and then maybe drop a little nugget in there, educate them when possible. But the other thing that he mentioned, along with helps them listen more, is everything slows down. Again, that's how you want these first meetings to be. And the reason the framework is so helpful is that going into that meeting what you're going to say and kind of how it's going to flow. And what's going to inevitably happen is things will come up, right? They'll say different things, you'll get off track, but it helps keep you back on track and it helps keep the meeting going forward. And again, it'll give you confidence, help slow things down, help you listen more. All those things are going to help ensure that you have a better first meeting. So Where can you get our first meeting script? You can sign up for the producer playbook, where we give away the script as part of one of the PDFs in there. Highly recommend checking that out. It's been a life changer for Ian. I think it would be for you too. All right. The third thing that Ian and I were talking about this week was solidifying relationships. I told you a couple weeks ago, he wrote his first client, about 10K in revenue. He did a great job, right? This person was hurting. He fixed their pain. Guess what? Now he has a huge fan. They love him. You guys, take advantage of this opportunity, right? Because this feeling, this loving feeling where you're the best agent ever, it can fade, okay? It can fade fast. I'm not saying they're gonna hate you, but it kind of becomes like, okay, what have you done for me lately, right? So when they're in this peak feeling, this is when you can really use this to your advantage as an agent and one, have a lunch, right? So Ian had lunch with this guy and he said something, it really solidified my relationship. And that's such a great point. I have clients, when I write new clients, sometimes I don't meet them in person all the time, right? In today's world, I'll have clients a couple hours away. We just talk on the phone, but one lunch together a year is all you really need. It just changes things. It's hard to explain. For those in the business, you know what I'm talking about though. And I'm not even saying a meeting at their office, that's fine, but going to a lunch is just different. And I think it does cement that relationship. And anyway, so take advantage of this window and use it as an opportunity to get to know them, right? But also maybe get some referrals, okay? And I don't know if it was Randy Schwantz or whoever, but Red Hot Introductions, or there's been other takes on that, but be specific. Don't just say, hey, if I can ever help out anyone, that'd be great. Maybe you look on LinkedIn, find who they're all connected with, and just come to that lunch with it in your pocket or and just be like, hey man, I was just checking you out on LinkedIn. Like, I saw you're connected with this guy. Is there any chance like you could intro me to them, or do you know them at all? Just be a little bit more proactive with it, right? Not saying you gotta be a pushy life insurance guy who comes out with a list of family and friends and say, who do you know on this list that you can refer me to? That could work, and maybe that style's for you, just it's not really for me. But anyways, so the last thing I want to talk about here is the follow-up later list. And I know I beat this thing to a pulp, but I'm just a huge fan of it because I've seen it work really, really well in my own career. I've seen it work well in others' careers that have adopted it. And it's just important that this list be kept up to date every single week, right? I talked in the beginning of this little session here about the importance of keeping that excitement. And one of the things the follow-up later list does is it helps you maintain that excitement level, right? Especially when things get tough. But it also helps you kind of look ahead and see what's coming up, right? Man, I got to work harder. My pipeline sucks right now, right? Those are all different things that you want to know about. And it's always changing every week, removing, adding, right? And there's 4 different categories on this follow-up later list that I add on there. And again, I wouldn't call it a true pipeline, but it's kind of a weaker version of a pipeline, right? So there's 4 columns, essentially the name of the prospect of the company, the X date, the revenue size I estimate, and then just a note, right? Like what phase is that at? And in that note column and the phases that I talk about, there's really one of 4, right, that I'm going to add to this follow-up later list. And that is the person who says, call me back, right? And not just say, hey, call me back next month. Maybe not that, but you have a conversation like, hey man, timing's off. I really do want to talk to you. We're thinking about reviewing our insurance. I would like to talk with you next month. Well, that's going on my follow-up later list. So that's category 1. That'd be probably the coldest one. Second company that's going on the follow-up later list is the people where I actually talk to them and I set a meeting. Great, add them to that list. And again, you're putting their name, the revenue, and the X date. And then the third company that I'm adding, or it's not really an ad, but in the third stage on that list, you have the people who you have a meeting set with, person who said, call me back later, and then the people where it's like you had your first meeting and now you're waiting on information from them, right? So it's kind of in that purgatory phase, like you want to review their policies or need to set a discovery meeting. And that's just another category. And then the last category is you're reviewing, you actually got the information and you're preparing a final proposal, right? Or maybe you've done a proposal and you're just waiting on an answer. But those are really the 4 categories of people I'm putting on this list. So as you can see, it changes all the time. And I'm a fan of it, right? And it's so simple and it's printed out on a piece of paper in front of my face every single day. All right, guys, that is all I got for you. I hope you found this episode helpful, valuable. If you did, go share it with somebody. Comment below any questions you have. We'll try to respond. And then make sure you subscribe to us on LinkedIn, check out our newsletter, all that fun stuff. And last but not least, if you haven't, consider purchasing the Producer Playbook. We teach agents how to go from scratch to $1 million plus book of business, step by step. And we've got a ton of good feedback on it. So if you think that would be helpful, go check it out, and we'll talk soon. Good luck out there.